Just watched Arrow Season 3, Episode 18. I love this show. It's one of my favorite shows on TV. I've loved it since it's been on, but I've just gotta get some stuff off my chest, and it may hurt a little. Hey guys, this is Matt. I just finished watching Arrow Season 3, Episode 18, titled Public Enemy. It was fairly decent, but nowhere near as good as some of the other episodes, and I gotta say, I've been struggling with some stuff this season. Overall, I like it, but there's just some stuff that's been bugging me, and I can't really take it anymore. I need to talk about some stuff, and so I figured let's talk about it here. There was some stuff in this episode that bugged me too, so I've just got to get it off my chest. Let's talk about a few of the things that happened in the episode first, and then we'll get into some of the things that are really just kind of not making any sense at all this season. So first things first, we've got Ray in the hospital. That was great, I guess. Felicity's mom showed up. She's always fun, but really, what was the point of her being there? I don't really understand. She just kind of showed up out of nowhere. She kind of hung around the hospital for a little while, and that was it. And then she left. She told Felicity that sometimes you have to take a chance, and it's almost like she was the catalyst for Felicity injecting Ray with his nanobots. But I don't know. It just seems like Felicity could have come up with that solution herself. So it just seemed really out of place. Just seemed like she was there for maybe comedic relief in what was otherwise a pretty intense episode, pretty down and sort of sorrowful episode, if you will. Speaking of the nanobots, though, it was cool to hear Ray talk about those and talk about injecting himself with teeny tiny robots and shrinking the blood clot. I really hope that in the future, maybe in the spin-off show, that we get to explore Ray or the Atom's shrinking abilities instead of just having the Iron Man armor. I'm not a fan of him just being a cheap Iron Man knockoff. It's so far and away a departure from the comics. I mean, I'm a pretty big purist anyway, but this is crazy. He's just wearing a suit of armor. It has nothing to do with shrinking down, and that's just one of the things that's been bugging me this season. I know he's not a series regular, although he will be in the spin-off show, but it just seems like they could have done something a little bit better than just a cheap suit of armor, but I guess we'll see what the future holds. And then the last thing I want to talk about in regards to Ray and Felicity is their relationship. So I know there's a lot of Oliver and Felicity shippers out there. I'm kind of one of those, but I'm also kind of okay with Ray and Felicity being together. I like Felicity a lot, and Ray really cares about her and wants to take the time to have a relationship with her. Maybe he's being naive. Oliver told him a week or two ago that you can't be a hero and have a relationship. You can't have your cake and eat it too, basically. And Oliver has discovered that, but Ray hasn't yet. But I kind of feel like that they could work. I've never really bought that. You know, there's this whole thing, especially in comics, where I can't tell you my secret because if you knew it, you would be in danger. Well, that doesn't make any sense. What does anybody knowing a hero's secret have anything to do with them being in danger? I'm going off on a tangent. I'll dial it back to Ray and Felicity. I like them together. Ray really cares about her, and she needs that. He told her that he loved her this episode, and she didn't say it back. So I kind of think that's going to be the beginning of the downward spiral that will be their relationship, and it's probably going to be short-lived from here on out. And I really kind of hate that because I like Felicity. She's a fun character, and I don't really like her sitting around moping about Oliver all the time. So another thing we got in this episode was another flashback, but this one was actually fairly pointless. I actually like the flashbacks pretty well. Some are better than others, but this one was probably one of the, I don't want to say the worst ones because that's pretty harsh, but this one just didn't really do much. So Oliver meets Shadow's very conveniently placed twin sister May, and that encounter served no purpose whatsoever. He met her. He went back to her apartment. He told her about Shadow and her father. Gave her a little bit of closure on that, but other than that, I mean, what did that really serve? I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I guess the point of that whole thing was to talk about the truth, because Oliver did eventually tell the truth at the end of the episode, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I guess that's kind of what this flashback was sort of trying to set up or foreshadow is the fact that that, as they said in the show, truth is the most powerful weapon. But it's just that it was a really convoluted way to get there. It just seems like they could have come up with something better, unless May shows up in another episode, which that would be pretty cool, but I don't see that happening at all. Okay, so I've talked about a couple things in the episode that didn't really have a lot to do with pushing the story forward, at least from what it appears right now. So really the biggest part about this episode, and this is kind of the embodiment of everything that's been bugging me this season so far. So this episode essentially was a big chase episode. The cops are chasing Arrow and Arsenal and Black Canary and Diggle. They're chasing them all over the city. Ra's al Ghul pops up for a minute. He kidnaps Captain Lance, tells him Oliver's identity, and to be honest, it's about time that Captain Lance found out who the Arrow is, and it's a little silly that it took this long. I mean, all the signs have been there. He knows who Arsenal is. He knows who Black Canary is. He knew that Sarah was Black Canary. He knows that Felicity works with the Arrow. And he knows that all of those people that I just mentioned all revolve around Oliver. So how he didn't put that together before now, it's actually really silly. And in fact, I would actually put it above the silliness that is Lois Lane not knowing that Clark Kent is Superman just because he's wearing glasses. It just didn't make sense, especially, you know, he's supposed to have been this seasoned detective, and he's been on the job for 20 or 30 years or what have you, and he didn't know that? Really? Come on, man. So finally the cat's out of the bag. Thank goodness. Now, they actually did mention something. He did mention something that made me feel a little bit better about it. He said that he felt like he always kind of knew that Oliver was the Arrow, but when he thought the Arrow was doing good for the city, he didn't really care. I can actually kind of buy that. You just kind of know in the back of your head who it is, but the less you know, the better. Plausible deniability. You don't have to take any action if you just act like you don't know who he is. He's out there doing good, so what does it really matter? So I kind of buy that, but they dragged it out so long that wasn't a strong enough argument. Really, if they had done that in season 2, maybe. When he started working with the Arrow, when he started figuring out who was on Team Arrow, maybe that would have been okay then. I guess it's a little bit too little too late, but finally he knows. Finally. Another thing that's bothering me, though, it's bothered me for about a half a season now, is Captain Lance's motivation and determination to take down the Arrow. I mean, this is basically season 1 Captain Lance. I prefer season 2 Captain Lance. I always like heroes that have the cooperation of the police. You know, the Batman Commissioner Gordon relationship. It's always so frustrating when you have more of a Spider-Man and police relationship where he's obviously a hero. He's clearly doing good, but the police and other people around the city can't see that, and they're chasing after him like there's some kind of criminal. That drives me insane, and we had a lot of that in season 1. We finally got past that in season 2, and now we're back to that again in season 3. I understand that he's upset that Oliver and Laurel and whoever else didn't tell him about Sarah dying, but come on, man. I mean, he's clearly done so much for the city. Sure, you can be pissed at him, but you don't have to wage this big vendetta to take him down. You know he's doing good. You know he's not a killer, regardless of what you see. He even mentioned in this episode that if he wouldn't dress up like Robin Hood, quote unquote, this impersonation wouldn't be happening. So it just kind of coming out of nowhere. It just kind of feels like that they don't really have a good villain. I mean, Ra's is a great villain, but they're not really using him that well. And who else do they have except for these, villain of the week characters? So they need to have somebody to antagonize Arrow. So let's just go back to the well and use Captain Lance again. It just doesn't make any sense. It seems so out of character. and and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, so obviously Captain Lance knows that Roy is Arsenal. He mentioned it several weeks ago, and he doesn't put out an APB for Roy. He can't, and it sort of all goes back to he can't figure out the Arrow is Oliver, even though he knows that Roy was in a relationship with Oliver's sister. And I mean, there's just so I could go on and on about this, and I'm trying not to harp on it too much. I think you get my point. It just doesn't. It's baseless. It doesn't make any sense for the show. It seems like we're going backwards, and when you're telling a good story, you're supposed to be constantly moving forward, and it's really, really driving me crazy. Now, the one surprise that I got out of this episode that I didn't see coming, I guess I probably should have, is that once Captain Lance finds out that Oliver is the Arrow, he goes on television and tells everybody. So that's interesting. How is Oliver going to deal with that? I think in the comics, at least for a time, everybody knew that Oliver Queen was the Arrow. I think it was around Brightest Day, and I think actually I think there was some times even before that. I've only read some of the Green Arrow issues in the last few years, not some of the older stuff, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think that same thing happened in the books, and it worked for a while. It's kind of Iron Man, Tony Stark, everybody knows who he is, but then things happen and they don't know, and they do know again, and we'll see how that shakes out. I don't really know how they'll play that up. I kind of think that they'll go through season 4 with everybody knowing Arrow's identity, but I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with a way that everybody unlearned it or something like that. So speaking of, and this is the part that really this was the straw that broke the camel's back. So speaking of knowing who the Arrow is or who he isn't, so Oliver walks into the police station. He confesses. All the evidence is there. All of Oliver's buddies are known to be the Arrow's buddies. There's no denying any of that stuff. Oliver confesses. He's being hauled away to jail, and then Roy jumps on top of the police van in the green suit and says that he's Arrow. But Captain Lance clearly knows that he's not. He knows that Roy is Arsenal. So again, all the evidence is there, but then Roy jumps in, and it's noble what he's doing, but it couldn't possibly work. But apparently it does, based on the trailer for next episode. Roy's in an orange jumpsuit, getting jumped in jail, talking to Oliver. Oliver's thanking him for rescuing him. It just doesn't make any sense. There's so much about this season that doesn't make any sense at all, which is a shame, because thinking about Ra's al Ghul, I love that he's on the show. I know that he's primarily a Batman villain, and they're using a lot of Batman story and Batman characteristics in Arrow. But I like that Ra's is here. He seems like a good adversary for Arrow. It's a shame that they didn't tangle more in the books. But anyway, he's not being utilized to his full potential. I mean, they could really. I mean, Ra's he could take down Deathstroke easily. He could take down Merlin easily. So every season you've got to top the villain from the season before. Ra's is one of my favorite Batman villains. It doesn't get much more menacing, but they're not really using him. So what are they really doing? I mean, it was great to see the episodes in Nanda Parbat when Oliver and Diggle went to free Merlin, and Ra's was there, and it kind of took an unexpected turn with the job offer to be the next Ra's al Ghul. That was really interesting. What's he going to do? Obviously, he's not going to take it. Well, maybe he might take it. How's he going to get out of it? That kind of thing. But there's just so much more I feel like they could do with Ra's, and they're just not doing it. Instead, they're just harping on Captain Lance and his vendetta, which makes no sense at all. It's really driving me crazy, and saying all this actually kind of hurts, because I love this show, and even with all its faults this season, I still love it. It's one of my top probably 3 to 5 favorite shows on TV. I look forward to it every single week. I have to. It's one of the only shows besides The Flash that I have to watch on the night that it airs. Everything else I'm cool with leaving on my DVR for a couple days, but this show is fantastic. I love it, even with its faults, but I really hope that they can fix some of this stuff in the next season, and hopefully maybe even repair some of it in the remaining episodes for this season, because it's just really bothering me. But I guess we'll see what happens. That's enough of my rant. I've gone on too long about all of my problems with it. There's still some great stuff. The action's great. I mean, there's still a lot of great things about it, but they've just got to fix some of this stuff too. So anyway, that's all I'll say about it for now. Thanks for watching. Be sure to comment below if you agree or disagree, or if you have any other thoughts that I haven't thought about yet. Be sure to subscribe to us everywhere we are on the internet. We've got Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, all /Nerd Punch after that. So we're easy to find. We're easy to communicate with. So be sure to do that, and I will see you guys later.